Well, good evening, race fans. Thank you for joining us for the first Slingin Dirt of the year. I am Dan Taylor.
Finally, we back to some dirt racing.
Well, let's not jinx it. we test our dirt racing ability in April and May, but looks like it's going to be good weather this weekend for some racing.
Yeah, you know what I'm calling for? Or forecast of crows to be flying overhead in about 5 minutes.
Well, we wanted to kick off the Slingin Dirt with a bang. And what was it, 2 years ago? It was 2012.
2012, yeah.
We had Roger Haden, French Grimes, and Adam Gullion all in the studio kind of conversating about the 305's.
We had Jay Eckley, then we had the imported redneck, Smiley.
He was an interesting fella.
From Texas, yeah. More Race Saver cars.
Yeah.
And we had a big conversation about, is the 305's going to be a good class around this area? And we've got on the phone with us tonight Adam Gullion, who I think you could easily classify you as the anti-305 guy at that time. Am I going out on a limb there?
Oh, no, I think that's definitely you couldn't be any closer to the truth, that's for sure. And I was definitely the anti-305 guy. I mean, it's human nature to resist change, and I had worked so hard for so long, and up until this year, to work my rear off to stay, competitive and to keep myself, I guess what I felt to be a relevant, competitive sprint car driver, even if it was just locally, because it costs so dang much to do it. I just felt like that was just discrediting everything that I'd worked so hard for, and of course, again, with the human nature to resist change, I guess you could say I voiced my opinion pretty bluntly and loudly, and I think anybody that knows me knows that I've never had a real problem of saying what I have on my mind, and at that time I obviously didn't hold any punches back, that's for sure.
That's absolutely for sure. I think French Grimes is still mad at you for that. Have you talked to French since that interview and kind of...
Oh, well, I've talked to him. I won't say that, either one of us brought up that interview. He last year for the 305 Nationals, Roger was kind enough to work his rear off for a couple days and take a motor from nothing. In fact, I think he pulled the engine block out of the weeds and did some machine work and threw together a 305 for the 305 Nationals for us. And a couple of guys got together and rented it from Roger, and we got to run the 305 Nationals last year. And French, I think among a couple other people, were doing some teching, and just so happens that when my car came through the tech line, it had just so happened to be on French's side. So, but he was real nice, and we were really very respectful, and obviously was very fair, and at the time, like I said, it just felt like everything that I had done up to that point, for the last, at least 10 years of racing sprint cars, that just been. It was just kind of being discredited to something that what I thought at the time was cheapening the sport, and in a way it does, but it doesn't cheapen it the way that I thought. It actually put more of the value back into racing, because instead of having a 360 guy now, I mean, let's just say a local guy now, for instance, Jack Dover, he's running. Had a Roush Yates motor. Now he has somebody else build his motors, but they're $40,000-$50,000 motors. Local guys can't compete with that. So in 2 laps, pretty much where they're starting or where they're at. I mean, that's unless something happens, that's kind of the race you're going to see. Well, now with the 305 stuff, it's really kind of anybody's race. I mean, you always have. Your 2 or 3 or 4 guys that are kind of the cream of the crop per se, and they'll kind of race to the top and go to the front. But where it's different now is instead of having 1 or 2 guys or maybe 3 guys going, racing well, you might have 4 or 5 guys racing for the lead, and then the rest of the pack is all racing for position too. So really, you get to see racing all around the track, and it's great racing. It's close. It might not be quite the speed that the 360 stuff was, but I think that's quickly discarded because the value of the racing that you're seeing is so much better because you're seeing everybody race for positions instead of a couple guys moving around here and there. I mean, you go to the World Outlaw stuff, and you got guys that'll start 7th and finish 4th. Well, you know, you're spending $40 for a ticket for the World Outlaws, and how much racing did you actually see?
Yeah. Take me through the process. You dug your heels in that you were never going to switch to a 305. You were a 360 true and true. And it's not to rub it in your face or anything, but I want to get into the head of Adam Gullion. And for me, when I dig my heels in like that, and it's time to make, it's so hard for me to make that decision and to come to the reality that I need to make that decision. So take me through that process, that thought process to switch to a 305.
And I'm the same way. Again, I say what I feel and what comes in. What I want to say, I have absolutely no problem saying. I have learned over the years to maybe have a little bit more tact in what I say, and definitely that first interview probably didn't have as much tact as I probably should have, but it was a hard decision for me because, again, it just felt like I was stepping down, and it was so hard for me to do that because, again, I've worked and done and killed myself and done and sponsor hunted, and you get over the winter and you work all. I mean, my wife could vouch for me. I mean, every single night I'm on the computer looking for product sponsors or new businesses in town, or I'm always looking for something so that I can continue to do what I love, which was race 360 sprint cars. So for me, when my crew chief, Shad Roth, my crew chief, we had kind of sat down and after the 305 Nationals last year, we had talked all winter long that we needed to work really hard this winter and get enough sponsor dollars together so that we could at least put together a 305 motor so that we could go at least run the 305 Nationals, or, you know, we don't really have a local weekly, 360 gig where you're racing every single weekend. And when they do race, it's an hour or 2 hour drive. It's not the 20 minutes that I have to Eagle. So we were all winter long, we kind of had the idea that, we were going to go do a little bit of 305 racing because, again, we had so much fun. We raced 360s all year last year. I spent close to $30,000. We finished 2 races. How much fun does that sound like?
Wow.
Not fun at all.
No.
So then we rent a motor from Roger, and we raced 2 nights. Probably raised a little hell after the races, a little more than we should have. We're asked to kindly leave a couple times because we were having a great time. There might have been 6 people in the back of my mule doing wheelies and stuff. That might have happened. I'm not going to say that it did or didn't. But, we were asked to kindly leave.
Where did this happen at? Was it an
Next night
Eagle?
we decided the wheelies are over and we were going to race around the racetrack with the mule. And again, we were asked to kindly leave that night as well. But we had a lot of fun. The people we met were great people. We made a lot of friends. We made really good friends with some folks from Texas. And we just had racing was fun again.
It sounded like you had a blast.
Oh, it was. We had way more fun than we should have, which is why we were asked to leave. But it was cool. I mean, and it was the first 305 Nationals at Eagle. Roger got the promoter of the year, and there's reasons for that. I mean, he always does something different. He's done the whoopee cushion thing. He's done, for the 305 Nationals, he gave everybody a glow stick, turned out all the lights, and put a spotlight on each driver, and they started from the back and interviewed everybody, and they got to talk, and it was just a really cool thing to be a part of, and I'm grateful that I was. And I'm sort of looking forward to this year's Super Nationals. Not real wild about the three-wide start, but I hope I'm on the front row. I definitely don't want to be in the middle, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But we had a lot of fun, and now we're out here doing this 305 thing, and we're having fun again. We're not quite having the results that we wanted. Well, we did the first night. The second night out, we we were running well, running third, chasing down the leaders, and we're having a good time, and ended up catching the implement tire and tearing up the car, and ended up starting the first points night in 19th instead of third. But again, it's a long season, but we're back to having fun again, and I'm not having to spend. Last year I spent so much money on my motor because we had valve train problems, and one of the things that kind of pushed me into doing this was my motor was fresh. It had 2 shows on it. Sat all winter long, put it in a brand new race car, fired it, ran for 3 minutes, broke a retainer, bent a valve, cracked the valve guide in the head, nicked the cylinder, so now the cylinder's got to be re-sleeved, and it's just like, what else? I mean, is this what this year's going to be like? Something's going to happen one time, and it's not fun anymore. And I had a conversation with my wife one night on the way to dinner. I don't know how much longer I'm going to race. It's not fun anymore. It's just not fun. Now we're doing this 305 thing, and in a lot of aspects, the 305s are actually harder to drive than a 360 because you don't have the power to get yourself out of trouble. You don't have the power to run somebody down. You don't have the power to run away from anybody.
So it puts the skill set back in the driver's hands?
Far more, because it doesn't matter if you buy a $20,000 motor from whatever motor builder. Let's say Shaver builds a 305 motor and charges you $20,000, $25,000, whatever. And then you have, Adam Gullion that builds one in his race shop that maybe has $6,000 or $8,000 in. They're going to be within 10, 15 horse of each other, no matter what. Doesn't matter because the rules are so strict. The valve springs have to be, this is what it has to be. The crank, this is what it has to be. The rods, this is what they have to be. And there's no lenience. So it doesn't really matter if you put a $4,000 injector on it or a $800 injector you buy on hose heads from somebody. As long as you understand how to fuel a race car, you can go out and be competitive.
And this is where I want to turn it over to Roger, because there's a very important distinction that people are missing out on. There's a 305 class, and then there's a Race Saver 305 class.
Yeah, that's where I get a little freaked out is when people start talking 305, because there is 20, 30, maybe even $40,000 305 stuff out there, depending on what kind of 305 it is. I looked at a lot of rules when we started this class to try to make sure I picked something that was enforceable and affordable. And that's kind of how we came up with this Race Saver deal, and it had been established for about 16 years at the time. So I knew it was a sustainable deal, and we picked Race Saver, which does start as a 305 motor, but it's completely different than, say, a Knoxville or Burlington 305 or some of the other 305s around the country. It's got more specific parts in it that I think make it harder to spend money on and make more power.
It's more locked down so that it's more even, so that it achieves the overall goal of not throwing money after money after money after money.
Yep. You can't spend enough money to overcome the spec parts that are involved in this motor.
Adam, I want to ask you a question. When you're talking about you can only see a 10, maybe a 15 horsepower difference between a $20,000 Schaefer motor or, like you said, a $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 motor that you built in your garage, when you look at other teams out there that are spending upwards of $15,000, $20,000, does it really make sense to spend that much money just to get 10 horsepower?
Well, no matter what you do in racing, no matter what, he who has the gold makes the rules, or at least wins more than the other guy. It's that way with anything. There are things that you're paying for that you don't need. They're paying for billet blade 4-bolt main caps. You don't have to have that. It's a 9 to 9.5 to 1 compression motor. You can run a 2-bolt. You can run a 2-bolt main and not have to have the 4-bolt caps. You can run the 2-bolt caps. You can, and it will live. Is it sketchy? Sure, it always is. It's racing. It's not. We're not using it for its intended use anyway. So, but I've rebuilt a motor for a guy that's a real good friend of mine this year, or this winter. 2-bolt stuff. He raced it for a year last year. I drove it last year, and I have a heavy right foot. I'm hard on motors and tires, and motor's fine, runs fine. The particular motor that I have now, I actually I freshened my motor, and I traded my motor, complete motor, for a complete Race Saver 305 from Texas. So I traded a complete ready-to-go car motor. The motor was 6 races from new. Now, I mean, it's got some other stuff done to it as far as, like, it's got some add-on stuff like lightweight plumbing. You don't need it. You have to weigh 1575 or 1550 if you run the fire suppression system that they don't mandate, but they strongly recommend that you use. So why run the titanium bolts? Why run the lightweight plumbing? Well, for a guy like me that's been kind of around the block a long time, I do it because I know where I want to put the weight, because I know how I drive, how I want the car to react. So I run the lightweight stuff, so then to make weight, I can place the weight in the places that I want to. Locate it centrally in the car and on, certain sides of the car, and so on and so forth. So why go spend all the money? Because it makes you feel better, honestly. and I'm not trying to just be a smartass, but that's the way that this is designed. And now, being on this side of the fence as opposed to the other side of the fence, I actually kind of appreciate what they're doing with the rules, whereas before I was 110% against it. And, in no other word that I could describe it, it was just me being ignorant. I didn't understand it. I was resisting it because it's normal human nature just to resist change. But now being on the other side of it, I actually appreciate it, because I know when I roll my car out of the trailer every single night, I'm going to be competitive. And then it's up to the driver to see where you go from there.
We're talking with
I've been
Adam.
racing since I was 11, and I'm 28 now. So when I unload, I kind of like my chances. Whereas before, I was running against Jack Dover that was on the national tour for a couple years. He ran Knoxville for a couple years. He's been in 410s. And then you got Billy Alley. He's got 410 championships. And, I mean, the list goes on. The other local guys that have Trevor Grossenbacher. I mean, he has the track record at Eagle. I mean, he's ran well at national tour races at Eagle. And he's a local guy. So, I mean, it's not just your Jack Dovers and your Billy Alleys. I mean, there's a long list of really, really good talent in this area. Not to say that I didn't feel like I wasn't on that list, but, I mean, let's face it. Jack's a good driver. Trevor's a good driver. I mean, you're going to have to stuff the moon and stars and everything's going to have to be lying to beat these guys on a regular basis. It's just tough.
We're talking with Adam Gullion.
I started a new business last year, and I just didn't want this year to be tough, or tougher than it's going to be anyway. So I'm glad I did it, and I'm having a lot of fun so far.
We're talking with Adam Gullion here on the Slingin Dirt, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs.
Adam, for a lot of the drivers out there that are eyeing this Race Saver, when they're going, well, some of these guys in the 360s or the 410s, let's just say the 360s, you're talking about they're spending $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 on motors. There's been some 360 sprint cars out there that are pushing turnkey, $80,000, $90,000 just for a car to be competitive, to run up front. Well, nobody wants to go buy a car and run in the back and, be a Sally. But with that being said, when you look at the price, for a 360 car that you ran versus a car that's a Race Saver sprint car, what is the cost difference roughly? Can you sit there and say, well, this car, the 360 that I'm running, that's a $60,000, but this car I can go run competitively for say $15,000. Can you put a price on that?
To say an exact number, even if I threw out an exact number, it would be a shot in the dark, and it probably wouldn't be accurate.
What was your 360 motor worth?
What was it? Okay. And then see, that's another thing though. This 305 thing is obviously made a substantial hit on what 360 parts are worth today. It's not worth what it was a couple years ago in our area, because this 305 thing is blown up and it has been so successful. Everybody's kind of jumping ship and wanting to go over to that, because guys are spending that kind of money for what? To say you did? to say, you want a 360 race? Well, I've raced sprint cars for 10 years. I've raced a 305 5 times. I ain't won a race yet. I won a heat race, but I've got a second. I've finished in the top 5 other than Saturday when I wrecked. But I would say I had close to 38,000 in my 360.
In the car or the motor?
Just the motor. But I'm an extremely, and Roger can vouch for this, I'm an extremely competitive person. Very competitive. I want to win everything. If it paid more to run last, I would still want to win.
Well, when you look at your Race Saver sprint car now, what do you think a fair market value, to go racing when you're a Race Saver? That's what I'm getting at, because, me being a modified driver, I've got guys in the A-mods saying, well, if you want to run top 5, even with a crate motor car, you're looking at $40,000, but I'm like, well, I'm down here in the B-mods, sport mods, whatever they're called, I've got $7,000, $8,000 wrapped up in my car. And that's what I was looking at, was a price difference, because if somebody's going, well, I don't want to go spend $20,000 to go run a Race Saver, you don't need to. You can go buy a car for, $13,000, $14,000, $15,000, go run up front. Yeah,
and you can. And we were up at Rogers, I want to say about 6 weeks ago. We were up there looking at a car that he had for sale. And after we were done, we were sitting in the lobby just kind of shooting the shit a little bit and just kind of bench racing. And he had made a comment, and the number sticks out in my head, and Roger, correct me if I'm wrong, but he said at the time that he thought you could get a Triple X chassis and a motor together and build a brand new car for around, was it 12.5, Roger? Was that the number?
The car would be about that, and then plus another $6,000 motor.
Yeah, so you're talking $18,000 for a brand new car.
To put that in perspective, a brand new A-mod roller, no drivetrain, $18,000, and we win $400 in the A-mods if you do that. So
yeah, you got to look at further back though. That's what I think's key is we pay back good. I mean, it's $250 to start a sprint car feature. You get $30.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I got scored 19th Saturday night. Got $250. I bought a new left rear tire to start the night out. I didn't have to, but the one that was on the car was kind of used and abused, and I think I had 4 or 5 shows on it from last year, and then it sat all winter. And we had one night on it with the 305, and then I was going to run it again because I don't have the 700 horsepower beating the crap out of the tires and then blowing fuel out the tailpipe like I did before. And because I have a heavier foot probably than most, I'm still going through about the same amount of fuel. I'm still burning about a half a gallon a lap. But I do some things differently than probably the other guys do. But I know Lovegrove told me last year that it was like 6 or 7 races before he bought a right rear. With a 360, I was buying a right rear one night, and the next night buying a left rear, and then the next night buying a right rear, the next night buying a left rear.
Wow.
You're talking $260 a tire. There's $260 a night right there, plus your pit entrance, plus your fuel for the car. You go through a barrel of fuel. A barrel of fuel is $145. I was racing one night a week, and I'd get 2 nights out of a barrel of fuel. So when you start adding these costs up, and now we're talking traveling, 2 hours, hour and a half, one way, and racing. And if I don't tear anything up, you're looking at $500 to $700 by the time I race and get home, and it pays $225 to start there.
You make me want to quit owning a racetrack because we all need to quit racing now. We're all broke.
Well,
but it's the truth. You're right.
None of us do this to make a profit.
No.
There's very few people in this business that make a profit.
So
really, it's a disease without a cure.
So really, Adam, it boils down to if we're not having fun, why are we racing?
Exactly, and that's why I went to this. That's the exact reason why I went to this, because I had so much fun at the 305 Nationals last year. I had more fun in those 2 days than I have in the last 8 years running 360s.
Adam, I've got a really good question I want to throw at you. When you see a lot of these classes, not that this class is new, it's been around, like Roger said, 16 years, but now that it's really taken off like fire here in the Midwest, I could see a lot of drivers coming up, approaching you going, well, I'm not going to take a step down and go race a Race Saver class, Adam. I mean, you got a bunch of rookies out there, that have never really done this. How would you counter that statement?
Well, and that was honestly one of the things that I struggled with too. And up until I was on my way, when I did this deal, I met the guy in Oklahoma City. I was on my way and still discussing it with my wife and one of my crew guys that I had going with me the whole way there. And I'm on my way to do it, and I'm still unsure because I struggled with that whole I'm stepping down. It feels like a step down. Why did I work so hard for so long to stay relevant and do the 360 thing? And don't get me wrong, there is nothing better than smacking the throttle on a 360. I mean, the time it takes you to get to full speed, the sound, the feeling, I can't believe it's even legal to do. But this 305 thing really ain't that much different. And like I said before, it's actually harder in a lot of aspects than it is. The 305 is a lot harder than the 360 because it's mandated so closely with rules, and every guy is competitive. I mean, you'll have your guys that will the cream of the crop will always rise to the top, but we're early in the season right now, racing with a lot of rookies. And it ain't going to be that much longer. And instead of 2 and 3 and 4 car battles for the lead, it's going to be a 5 and 8 and 10 car battle for the lead. And it's going to be, whoever anybody in the field can win. And that's what it's going to get to because everything is so much more equal now. It's just unreal. And it's, like I said, a lot of aspects, it's a lot harder than the 360. It's a lot easier on your budget. The politics aren't there. It's just a great class, and I agreed to do the show tonight because I'm on the other side of the fence now, and I see the value in the Race Saver 305 and what its purpose serves. I mean, we've got guys out there. We got 20 cars out there now that are all rookies, and I don't know how many last year didn't even race sprint cars. And now they're in sprint cars. Okay, so we were struggling for 16 cars in a field at Eagle in a 360, and now we've got 30.
34.
We've doubled it. As a promoter, as a fan, how do you not see the value in that? I thought it was cheapening and discrediting what we were doing, but it's actually restored a lot of the value and a lot of the fun and a lot of the the close racing and the cool things that get people into racing and keep people hooked and get them coming back. You're seeing that now, whereas before you were kind of seeing the same guy win every night or the same guys were kind of up front. I mean, you'd have your other night, you'd have nights in there where you'd sprinkle some other guys in there, but who won? I mean, you're watching 16 cars. And God forbid somebody wreck, how are you going to get back out there? So now you got 15 or 14 or 13 cars.
Adam,
now you're looking at 30 brand new. You're looking at 30 cars, and half of them are brand new, and that's just this year. What's next year going to bring?
It's exciting to see how fast this class, the Race Saver 305, has grown. But talking with Adam Gullion, now a driver of the 305 out of Eagle Raceway. Before we wrap it up with you, Adam, credit your sponsors and let us know where people can find you racing each week.
We'll be at Eagle Raceway every week. I'd like to, thank Philly Custom Powder Coating. I've been with them for a long time. They're out of Philly, Nebraska. They do fantastic powder coating. R2C Race Filters, Wicked Smoke, Precise Roofing, which is my new company. We do residential, commercial roofing, gutter siding, soffit, fascia, windows, doors, you name it, we do it. And Brenning Painting, Super Shocks, which I wish Roger would tweak the rules a little bit more on the shocks on the 305s, but I think that'll probably come in the future. But for right now, I think he's doing a great job. The track's been racy, so just having a lot of fun. Glad I made the choice, and looking forward to what the future is going to bring. I think the future, as far as where we're at in the Midwest with sprint cars, is definitely a heck of a lot brighter than it was before. And the other guys out there, I guess the thing I could say is that if you're struggling with you thinking you're moving down. I can tell you, if you get one, you're not going to be sad that you did, and you're going to have a heck of a lot more fun doing it, and you're going to find out it's a lot harder than what you're currently doing now.
So Adam.
Come on, let's hear it.
All right. These guys handed me something.
Pretty nice to me. Let's hear it.
All right.
I want to be clear. I didn't hand him anything.
Yeah, somebody handed me something here. So we got to have my name's Adam Gullion, and I'm here to say that I ate crow on Slingin Dirt.
My name is Adam Gullion, and I have to say that I've put both feet in my mouth, ate 3 crows, and I'm on Slingin Dirt.
Hey, thank you, man.
All right. Thank you, Adam. Best of luck this year, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, we'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Bye.
Just couldn't do it yourself, could you? You had to get somebody else to do it.
Yeah, you had to make me do it.
Jesus.
He was a great sport.
But he did it, though.
He was a great sport.
Yeah.
But I think, him driving the Race Saver was an eye-opener.
Yeah, if I was him, I'd have told you guys all get bent. There ain't no way I'd get back on here again.
Yeah. But you know what? I mean, like him or not, either way, for Adam to come on and then talk about the positive experiences in the Race Saver, you got to give it to him.
I got to tell you, I never, ever, after sitting in the studio that night and listening to the passion and the veracity in his voice and the words, I never expected to see him race a 305. I can't believe it's happening. I cannot believe it happened.
But it did, and he likes it.
And enjoy it, yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
he
and
enjoyed
enjoy
it.
it. Exactly. To race a Race Saver 305.
Yeah. We don't
Roger, I want to ask you.
Saver,
I want to ask you a
305.
couple of questions, and I wanted to wait until I got off the phone with him so that it didn't seem like I was shoving it in his face too much. But is it kind of a sense of pride for you that you stood up in front of a lot of criticism, including Adam, and if Saturday's any kind of a sign, you've made the right decision?
Yeah, I really think I might have lucked into something here. This is really nothing to do with me. I just chose a group of guys to come on board with. This thing's been going on a long time, this Race Saver thing. So I just happened to luck into looking at a set of rules that ended up making sense to me, and it's all because of French Grimes, that goofy old sucker. He knows what's going on, man.
Goofy is right. I got it. We tried to get
imported redneck.
We tried to get him on the phone tonight, but unfortunately our phone system doesn't allow for 2 different people on the phone at the same time. So we'll have to try for it another time. But he was a funny character.
Is there more Race Saver sprint cars out there being built that you know of, or is there more drivers or more potential drivers looking into cars that you might have for sale or something?
Well, locally you're talking?
Locally, or even let's just
All
local
right.
and nationally.
Well, I'll tell you, nationally, here's how things are happening. So IMCA's got people that are traveling the country talking to racetracks nonstop, and they're getting questions on this Race Saver thing that maybe they want to change their premier class to the to sprint cars. They're considering it. So we run go-karts on Fridays at Mini E. Then we went to running the big cars on our track on Saturday night. So I'm cleaning up. I load up, get my backside in a car, and I take off and head to Epley Airfield, and off I go. And I'm in Tulare, California, Sunday morning, and have a meeting with a few other tracks there and a bunch of drivers, and they're interested over there because they're struggling with car counts and people being able to afford to continue to race throughout the season. So I think this thing's exploding right now.
You had 34 cars Saturday night at Eagle Raceway. Do you see that car count going up just a little bit, you think?
I think it'll probably maintain. I don't want to be too optimistic. We do have close to 60 drivers registered. Wow. But I think most, there's some of them that are out of state, and I'm sure they're going to be hit and miss. And
that's just in this Race Saver.
Just Race Saver.
There you go, Dan. There's what you got looking forward to, possibly.
Well, that's what kind of I want to talk to you about, and we kind of talked about it briefly before we went on the air. And feel free to just, do you expect to see those kinds of numbers at Crawford?
They're going to have to work at it, yes. If they work at it and try to get some of the drivers, man, I can't think of his name. Okay, so there's a mod guy. Who was it at the auto show?
The mod guy?
Sport mod, or no, A mod. He had an A mod there. He's got a bunch of cars.
Didn't
He runs
Luke Cochran.
Runs hobby stocks.
Blaine Peterson.
Blaine Peterson.
He just
bought a car.
Yeah,
Race Saver car.
I talked to him at the World of Wheels, as a matter of fact, and not in 2014. 2015, he'll be racing Eagle weekly in the sprint cars.
Yeah, I mean, I think this thing would be a class that people in maybe A mods or even sport mods. I mean, those guys are going to be looking at it.
Now, I do want to put you on the hot seat for one big question, and you're a retired racer. It ain't going to be too long. I'll be a retired racer, so I'm not going to worry about this. But you've seen this in every class of racing. When the sport mods came out in IMCA, these were supposed to be Crown Vic stubs, used tires, all that. Well, guess what? That went by the wayside real quick. And now we have brand new cars, $18,000 cars, whatnot. When the modifieds, when you were a lot younger and the modifieds came out in 79 and 80, it was supposed to be a 2-bar car. Guess what? That went by the wayside. The prices went up. 5 years from now, do we still see affordable Race Saver sprint car racing, or do you see the prices going up?
Well, the reason some of that stuff changed over time was because rules changed.
How consistent has the rules been on the Race Saver for the last 16 years, though?
There's really been almost nothing changed other than the verbiage. Up until this year, there has been a couple changes. There's been a new tire adopted. So there's a national tire instead, and it's being sold at a lot lower cost than what these guys are even buying tires for new. It was a package deal that was put together. I think as long as the rules remain the same, and as long as French Grimes is around above the dirt, he's gonna be you've talked to him. He's a stubborn old fart. He ain't gonna change nothing, man.
But what I'm scared to death of, and I've seen this, and you've seen this in late model racing, modified, hobby stock, whatever. You're going to see the one jack wagon that's going to go out there, and it's going to happen. They're going to spend, the $18,000, $19,000, $20,000 on a Race Saver motor, and they're going to go out there and beat everybody. Well, all of a sudden, you're going to have the pack mentality going, well, if I need to win races, I need to go spend that money. What efforts do you think are going to be taken forward to curb that way of thinking?
You can't.
There's always going to, what he says is there's always going to be those people. And I'll use one person that's a prime example. I'm not saying anything bad about him. It's just the nature of the way he is. Luke Cochran. That man, as long as he is able to do it, he will spend whatever he has to win championships. That's his number one goal. And it's nothing to his detriment. I understand why he's doing that. And I think the answer, buddy, to your question is that the rules are in place for the Race Saver 305s to where if Luke was to sponsor a 305, his hands are tied.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you that we'll use Luke since you threw him under the bus already.
I didn't bring his name up.
So I would say Luke puts who's his driver?
Which one? Jack, Dennis Cook, or Jesse Sabe?
Okay, let's say he puts Jesse Sabe in it. Yeah, okay, let's say he puts Jesse Sabe in a sprint car. He ain't going to buy wins by spending more money.
No.
There's no way. The rules are written in a way that this motor's going to make 400, well, it depends on who's dynoing it, but 450 to 470 horsepower. If Jesse Sabe might win races because he can outdrive other people. He's a shoe. But he's not going to buy his way into wins. In a mod, I'm just going to throw a mod out there. He might put a brand new tire on every week. That might make a difference. He might make some changes to the accessories on his motor and spend tons of money, and that might make more power. But he's not going to be. You can't buy your way into more power so far on this Race Saver deal. No,
and that's the only thing that scares about me. I love, I've talked to my wife. My wife still says no. Believe it or not, Dan, I would love to try a sprint car. I would like to try it one night to see what I think, or hot lap it. When I find out,
B-mod.
Yeah. So
I won a bet I was supposed to last year.
So with that being said, I would like to try the sprint car. Rachel said no, but the thing I like right now, like you said, Roger, here a while back, $12,000, $13,000, $14,000. I mean, you had one car that was like 8 years old the first year out, and it ran like third or fourth in the A feature at Eagle. It was an old Schnee chassis, I believe.
Yeah,
it was an old dinosaur, but he ran competitively. He wasn't in the back. He wasn't getting lapped. He's not going to stay up there with Mike Boston, but he was running for contention for second, third. But as time goes on, that's what I'm scared to death of, is because I see these engine builders and whatnot going, well, look, if this guy's dumb enough to pay $20,000, guess what? We're going to stock it to him for $20,000. And then all of a sudden, I'm going to go, well, I'm not this guy. I can't afford a $20,000 Race Saver motor. So now all of a sudden, I'm back out of the sprint cars. And I've always worried about that, is how do you curb that kind of mentality?
You just got to have guys that can go out and beat them with stuff that's the average stuff. I mean, you can't curb it.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's tough to do it because as long as they can spend it, there's going to be an open market for it. I mean, it's a capitalist economy.
Yep.
They want you to spend that money, and if they give you an option to spend it, you'll spend it.
The problem is, in that market, it hurts the track promoter and it hurts racing in general, because let's say...
Well, that's why the 360 deal got to where it's at, and 410's got to where it's at. I mean, there's always been another class has come along.
Every class has gotten to that. I mean, I've seen sport mod guys spend upwards of $30,000 on a sport mod, and I'm going, what are you guys smoking or drinking? And it's almost like, let's talk about who's, tallywhacker's bigger than the next guy with our checkbook.
Yep.
And racing should not be about that. It shouldn't.
I don't know if you noticed, but life's about that.
Well, think of this, though. Okay, so mods, the evolution of the chassis has changed maybe monthly.
Yeah.
So it changes and changes and evolves, and supposedly is getting better and faster and so on. I might argue that, because I think I still have the fastest time ever at Denison, but that'll never be fixed because it's a different size now.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, things are evolving. The sprint car chassis has had the last 10 years. I don't know if there's been really a significant change made.
The one nice thing I do hear from Shaylee Bade and some of the other sprint car drivers, they look at the modifieds, and this is so funny, Dan. Shaylee's exact words, we were at Eagle for the icebreaker, and she's like, how in the hell do you guys keep up with chassis adjustments? She's like, I look at one bracket, and there's like 49 holes. You have two brackets with 40. There's 100 bar changes you guys can do, plus you guys have like 25 shocks in the trailer. She's like, I put like 4 little blocks under my sprint car, grease it, wash it, and go race the dang thing. Yep. She's like, you guys, I don't understand your mentality.
Yeah, you can literally do maintenance, one person do maintenance on a sprint car, wash it and go through and check everything, grease everything. The whole works in 4 or 5 hours.
What's the most amount of time you've ever seen in 1 week done on a sprint car? Provided it's not wrecked, just chassis, taking your time, cleaning it. What's the most you've ever seen anybody just
4 hours.
4 hours.
You probably spend 4 nights a week, 6 hours a night,
and
4
this
hours
guy,
a night.
I don't know how many times. Hey, what are you doing? Oh, I'm working on my car. I don't know if he's actually working on it or just complaining.
I started Sunday at noon because we just got done with the show. I started Sunday at noon, was done at 10 o'clock at night, so there's 10 hours. On Monday, and I have 2 cars, so Monday I worked from about 4:30 to not 10 o'clock. Tuesday, I worked actually from about 4:30 to about 10 o'clock. And then, of course, Wednesday yesterday, we were in the studio, and now I'm done. So you figure 10 hours. I've got about 20 hours in about 3 days. So I came in, kissed my wife on the cheek, grabbed a Dr. Pepper, went to the garage. I saw her for about 5 minutes. I come back in the house. She's in bed snoring like a freight train, and
so there's your sales pitch to her. Honey, I can spend more time with you if I owned a sprint car.
I don't know if that's good for their marriage.
No, you know what? That's a great point. The only thing that she's scared to death about, Roger goes, yes, I'll spend more time with you because you'll be in the hospital and the damn thing flips and rolls over.
That's why they put a parachute on the top. That ain't a wing. That's a parachute.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd just be like me. I actually have a parachute.
I'm sitting here listening to Adam about, when he's talking about it's, X amount of dollars for your engine in the 360s and in the 405's, and it's, all this. I've been looking at it for a while now, and I cannot fathom how anybody other than somebody who just constantly wins races can go out and find enough sponsors to pay for all of that. And we've been kind of hitting this subject through every different point. It's not just sprint cars. It's getting into late models. It's getting into A mods. It's starting to creep down into B mods. And I think, just to kind of echo Buddy's fear is, when is it going to hit the Race Saver 305's, or is it going to hit the Race Saver 305's?
As long as there's a person in charge of the rules who doesn't change them, I think it's going to be pretty hard to screw up this class. A-mods, for example, I'll just throw IMCA under the bus. I'm a big IMCA fan, but so they started letting them put the springs on the shocks. Well, then all of a sudden they let the shocks let them have threaded shocks. Then all of a sudden, the shocks could be somewhat adjustable and different lengths and different valving and gas charged and blah, blah. It just went on and on and on, and they kept changing rules. The shock alone now is $500, some of them, for a stupid shock.
Well, yeah, when the sport mods rolled out back in 2002, 2003, I was going to get a hobby stock, and then, the sport mod class shows up, and my dad and I, rest his soul, we were excited, because it was supposed to be a used chassis. It was supposed to be used tires. It was supposed to be this, and that. And it was like 2 years later, we've got brand new shocks, brand new tires, brand new chassis. I was like, are you kidding me?
Is this a new thing that has developed in the last 10 or 15 years? I mean, you've been in racing for a long time. Was it always this money-driven? I guess not I say this money-driven, but was there always this issue with it's just getting a little bit more expensive every year?
Yeah, it's never changed. It's always been this way, but it's more amplified now and happens quicker than what it did previously because there's more technology and more people trying to come up with new ideas.
Do you think something's going to have to change, though, to curb that mentality? Or do you think, seriously, overall, not just in the Race Saver, but in all classes, whether it be IMCA, NASCAR, whatever the sanctioning, do you think that eventually that may come back to bite the racing
industry?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It already is.
Yeah.
I mean, there's tracks closing all over the place. There's drivers that are quitting racing. I mean, it's everywhere, and it's not just racing. I mean, it's a lot of different things. But racing is also one of those sports that's very driven by ego, and that's where it goes back into the money deal.
I talked to a couple of drivers about this. Now I'm going to go back to my mod reference, being a driver in the mod sport mods. Back in 79 and 80 when Keith Knack, now you're promoter of the year in 2013. Keith Knack back then did not envision seeing these $40,000 A-mods. I don't think that's where he wanted it to go. I could be wrong, but I don't think back then he would have wanted to see that. I've told drivers, here's what's happened to the class, especially with the motors. Back in the days I'm not saying that you did it, Roger, but back when you and Joe and all the big names were still racing, somebody went out there on a weekly basis and they bought that $15,000, $20,000 piece, and they were just, wiping up. They're just winning all the races. Now, all of a sudden, monkey see, monkey do. Now you got 10 or 12 guys going out there spending $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 on pieces, and then we went to where it was accepted to have that kind of motor, but now IMCA comes back and they got that 604 crate motor, which I'm a huge IMCA fan. I think that was a great step in the right direction, but everybody's like, well, it takes all the driverability. It's not that it took all the driverability out of it. I don't think Keith Knack back in the day when he started the modifieds wanted those $20,000 motors in the cars. I could be wrong. What's your opinion?
Oh, God. Here we go. Here's where I get in trouble. I'm still a fan of the claim. I love the claim deal. Let the drivers police it themselves. If there's a problem, they'll police it. But the claim rules got changed. It all goes back to some of the rules keep getting changed, and they're not looking far enough down the road when the rules are being changed. That's why I really like this Race Saver thing. I mean, I was never a sprint car guy till, honestly, a year or two ago.
I think of any class, any sanction, the Race Saver sprint car, hands down, you're never going to make money at this sport, but hands down, it's the most sound investment for your dollar.
Absolutely.
Mainly
because you cannot buy a win by spending more money than the next guy.
No.
And it sounds like if you spend $15,000 to get into it, 4 years down the line, you're still going to be spending $15,000 on a new car. It's not going to be, I got into it spending $15,000 for a good competitive car, and now I'm spending $35,000. Now I'm spending $40,000. Now I'm spending $45,000.
You want to get in politics now? Because this is where it really gets bad, and this throws me under the bus even worse. And I really hate to say this, but our economy is screwed up. And what really is, I in the back of my mind, again, I wasn't a sprint car guy, but I kind of got thrown into this because some idiot, me, bought a sprint car track.
I wish the listeners could have just seen him. He's like, point at himself, me.
So I had to get to know this sprint car deal a little bit. And the thing that I really didn't realize, I think what's kept the sprint car deal overall, the car itself, somewhat affordable, is competition. There's cars being made overseas. And I think that car being made overseas is a competitive car, and it has kept the cost of the car to a point where sprint car racing is still affordable. Because if it wouldn't be for that overseas car, I think the total sprint car package would be so far out of reason price-wise, because the motor guys, they don't have other than the Race Saver deal, the motor guys don't have competition so much on a 360 deal. They can get guys convinced to spend whatever they want to spend. Well, the chassis part of the sprint car thing, you got a certain threshold where you got to stop charging the guy too much, on something made in the United States, because there's this overseas piece being made that costs X amount of dollars, so you can't be too far off that price. And the mod deal and all these other classes somewhat have this same problem, that all the stuff's being made here in the United States, and they can charge it well. They're only competitions the other guys around them, and they're dealing with the same taxes and everything else that it costs to build race cars. If somebody goes overseas and builds a mod, we might have something.
Well, Roger, we always do appreciate you taking the time out of your day. It was great to talk to you again. Buddy is apparently freaking... What? Just say it.
Well, no, I was going to ask you, we got Roger in here. I mean, you only get to see the guy, 3 times a year? So, now
making him mad.
We've kind of, covered the Race Saver pretty well, and Adam got to eat his barbecued crow, so to speak. But how's Eagle Raceway looking this year and the Race Saver? I talked to Roger about this, about possibly us doing the front stretch Sunday morning from Eagle from the Race Saver Nationals.
That'd be fun.
That would be a blast.
Yeah,
I'm coming out Saturday night and camping out in Shaylee Bates' trailer.
Well, I think
I love my wife, though.
Yeah, throw that in. Nah, that'd be great to have you guys at the Super Nationals. I think that would be really cool.
When is that again?
Labor Day weekend.
September-ish?
September's first Sunday in September.
I think it's August.
Yeah.
Or August 31st or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know. But
yeah, that'd be a lot of fun to go and do that.
I think you guys ought to do that, and you ought to maybe hang out at the parties afterwards, because we're getting some party stuff set up. This is going to be boon number 2.
You're gonna have to twist my arm, but okay.
Yes.
Well, I won't tell you that there's going to be any bikini contest or wet T-shirt contest or jello wrestling or anything like that.
Oh God, buddy, put your shirt back down.
You just chased away.
You're talking about your lady lumps on the radio show.
Oh, just threw up a little bit in my mouth. Let's end this before it gets even worse.
How's the rest of the season looking though at Eagle?
I think we're going to be pretty good. We got actually good weather so far this year. That's pretty unusual to start on good weather.
One thing I noticed about the first points night, where it seemed like your car count was down a little bit. You had 169 cars, 32, 34 sport mods.
Dude, that's triple what most tracks get.
Yeah, I was wondering. He said he goes 161. Their car count's down. I'm like, God, how many cars did you guys get?
Well, no, because last year we could show you where there was nights we were getting 50 or 60 sport mods. And I'm like, there's only 32 sport mods? I was like, that, and some guys are like, well, that's incredible. I was like, dude, it's Eagle Raceway. We get like 50 or 60. I mean, so did you hear of other cars being built or other drivers that just haven't made it back out yet? But it seemed like, there's 18 A mods, I think, or 24 A mods. There, now a couple of those sport mod drivers.
There was a B feature.
Yeah, there was a B feature, but even in the sport mods, every week it was like a C feature, and there was no C feature.
There should have been.
There should have been.
Yeah, did you watch that race?
No.
We should have probably had a C feature to speed up the B feature pace. Holy crap!
I heard there were 7 caution flags.
It wasn't too swift.
But that's got to be kind of a big relief off your chest that 32 Race Saver 305's came out.
Yep.
32, 34, what's the number?
32, 34, something like that.
Either way.
Yep. I think to have a premier class with that many cars in it at any track's pretty spectacular. And
just to have a car count of 30 in any class is spectacular.
Yeah, well, especially a premier class. That's the hard part. Most premier classes at a track are nowadays 10, 15 cars.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
I think we were talking about it beforehand. I think the biggest single class car count we had at Denison The best car count we had was beginning of the season last year was 139 cars, and I think we had probably 25 or 26 B mods, maybe about 20 stock cars. But those are the two class that drives that track.
You put 130 cars in the pits at Eagle, and it's going to look like a barren wasteland.
Yeah.
Well, you were talking about you guys got to add more pit stalls now.
Did you actually add more?
Yeah, we added some more pit stalls, but we're also going to expand out we're looking forward to the Super Nationals at the end of the season and on Labor Day weekend. And we're going to expand out another 3 acres of pit parking.
3 acres?
Yep.
How many sprint cars do you foresee roughly?
Well, I got a bet going.
Really? What's the bet?
We'll have more Race Saver sprint cars at Eagle within 5 years than what Knoxville has at their Knoxville Nationals.
How many does Knoxville Nationals get, roughly?
A little over 100.
Well, let me ask you.
You had over 100 sprint cars last year for the.
No, I didn't.
I thought you did.
60.
60?
Yeah.
So what do you see this year, roughly?
I think we might beat the record this year. I might win my bet this year, I think.
I mean, you had 32, 34 cars for the first week. What's an extra 30 for the Super Nationals?
Yeah. And this year, I don't believe anybody's racing any Race Saver type cars anywhere in the country. They're taking that weekend off so they can all come race.
What you want me asking when you got riding on it?
We don't want to talk about that.
We don't have to. I was just kinda curious.
Come on. That just takes all the fun out of it.
No, it leaves mystery in there. All right, EagleRaceway.com is the website for all ticket information, season passes, schedules, sponsors, race results. Roger, we always do appreciate you taking the time out of your day.
Yep, thank you guys. Have a good day.
We are taking next week off because we are live for the front stretch, so we won't be in studio. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Buddy, what are we talking about in 2 weeks?
I'm not sure yet.
Okay, good promo. Good. You should just listen anyway, so... Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you who knows about what in 2 weeks.